But welcome to our Nutrition for Parkinson's webinar. This is a lot more relaxed than I thought I'd be meeting you. I'm in my library of my own home. I'm sure a lot of you are just tucked away, maybe still in pajamas. We have some people from Cookeville, Tennessee as well. Excited to see people from a lot of different parts of our state. So thank you for coming today, and have lots to share with you. I had prepared to speak at the Parkinson's Expo. I was going to speak about nutrition there in the Brentwood, Tennessee area today. And unfortunately, that's been bumped out till quite a few months later. We hope that we can still gather then, but I didn't want to wait to be able to talk to you about nutrition because it's something that I am so passionate about. And some of you have met in the past at other events, and so you've seen my face before, you've heard me speak. But I just love talking about nutrition and a wholesome lifestyle approach. And so the things that I have for you today are some things that you need and can put into practice right now. And we need to know some of these things even for immunity and staying well. So I'm going to share my screen for just a second, and I'm working on learning how to do this one too. So if you don't mind, let's see, I'm trying to learn this one as well. I wonder if a lot of you are feeling like this right now. These are my sheep on my farm when we let them out a few days ago to get into the yard. Yep. I wonder if any of you are feeling stir crazy right now. It is one of those times when we're all kind of holed up in our house, don't get to be out as much, don't get to see people, and feeling a little stir crazy. So I am Bethany Thomson. I'm a registered dietitian, nutritionist, and I am hailing from Smyrna, Tennessee, which is just outside of Nashville area. I have 4 children. We have 11, 10, 8, and 6-year-old who are now all outside playing because it's a glorious day here. And my husband, Rob, works in corporate life, but also is a farmer. We're raising hair, sheep, and donkeys. So if you saw a sheep a few minutes ago, then you can, and I'm going to stop the video. If you saw a sheep a few minutes ago, then you met part of our flock. We also raise some donkeys to help take care of our sheep. And it's a fun life. We have about 30-something sheep now. We just had a new crop of lambs born, so that's exciting for us. And I love just being outside, seeing the new growth, our trees that are budding. We have some peach trees we just planted this past fall, and so that's exciting for me to be able to see little bitty peaches, and we have some cherry trees that are blooming, and to see new life around us, even despite what's going on in the world here. So I know this is a big change from what we expected a few months ago. None of us were prepared for all of this, and life has changed. But I want to help talk a little bit today about being resilient and how to manage stress in the midst of everything, and how to use nutrition and a wholesome lifestyle approach to do that. So I have a private practice here in Smyrna, Tennessee, based off of my farm called Ingrained Nutrition Therapy. And I work with individuals who have chronic inflammatory conditions. Most of my clients come to me with a lot of GI complaints like chronic constipation and diarrhea and pain, things that they just been trying to find answers for and haven't been able to figure it out. Have a lot of women with autoimmune conditions, such as Hashimoto's thyroiditis and some other autoimmune conditions like that. And then a lot of the women I work with have anxiety and depression and mood disturbances. And so we take a very comprehensive, what I call holistic approach to help. But before we go any further, I want to go ahead and just do something with you today that I've been working with my clients and doing for myself. It's not food related, but it's just a natural practice that has helped me to calm down, and in the middle of all this, how to help my body. So I'm going to lead you through an exercise that'll be good for me as I speak, and it will be good for you as you start off the morning. So this is called 4-7-8 breathing. I'm not sure if you've done this before, but it's a pattern of breathing that can help almost reset our nervous system, our stress system. This is something that you can do anywhere, but if you can, sit up in a chair or a couch with your back flat against and your feet on the floor, if you can do that. And just get comfortable for a minute. So if you can even do that right now, I'm gonna give you a second, just kind of get comfortable, put your hands on your legs, and I'm gonna tell you what I do, then I'm going to do it, and then we're gonna work on that together once. So we're going to breathe in for 4 counts. This is about 4 seconds. Some of you may or may not be able to hold your breath for what we're about to talk about, but we can breathe in for 4 counts. Then we're going to hold that breath for 7 counts. And then we're going to breathe out again with a whoosh for 8 counts. So when I'm breathing, the tip of my tongue is right behind my teeth in here. And I'm going to breathe in like that, breathe in through my nose, and then I'm going to hold it, still my tongue against the roof of my mouth. And I'm going to breathe out. I'm still going to keep the tongue against the roof of my mouth as I'm breathing out, kind of breathe around that. If you kind of need to purse your lips like that, you can. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what I do. I'm going to count with my fingers, and then we'll try to do that together. So I just did one cycle of a 4, 7, 8 breath count. So as you learn this, you'll probably be able to get a little bit faster. Not faster, sorry. You'll be able to hold your breath a little bit longer, but I'm going to do it a little bit shorter right now. I'm going to say it for you and let you do it. And I don't want to make you hold your breath too long, but this is something that's very relaxing. So I want you to breathe in for 4, starting now. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it for 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now breathe out through your mouth. 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There you go. You just completed your first cycle of 4, 7, 8 breathing. I'll send out more information about this after our webinar so that you can do that at home. So if you're someone with Parkinson's disease, or you have a caregiver with you, or a loved one, a spouse, this is a great thing to practice together first thing in the morning. Get up, take care of your first morning things, and go ahead and do some 4, 7, 8 breathing. It helps to just prepare for the day, calm down that, what we call that fight or flight response. You can repeat that for 4 cycles, and you can do that 3 times a day if you want to. Maybe a good thing to practice right before you eat 3 times a day, because we know that our body has to be in a state of relaxation even to digest well. So it's a great thing to practice right before you are going to eat a meal, to help your body know, okay, it's time to rest, time to relax, time to digest your food. And then you can also do that before you go to bed at night. Sometimes I do that when my brain is spinning, like I've been doing too much work on the computer at nighttime and thinking about things, and it's a good way to help my body just relax in bed. So you can do that as well. But I'll send out some more information about that one. But I just wanted to start our time off with that as a good practical exercise, and then we're going to just move on to some other things that I have to cover. So I use the word wholesome a lot when I talk. Healthy is kind of one of those words that gets mixed up. There's a lot of confusion about what health is, what's healthy for you. And sometimes it's almost a negative thing for us. We're like, oh, I don't even know what healthy means. What am I supposed to do to be healthy? There's a lot of confusing information out there. But when I founded my practice, I really wanted to communicate the idea of wholesome, talking about the whole body, whole person, because you are a whole person. You're more than just what you eat. You're more than the activity that you do. And when I talk about the whole person, some of you have seen this diagram before, but I like to think about health and wholeness in 7 different foundations. This is something I move through with my clients in one way or another. But we start with a foundation of rest, and we talk about nourishing our bodies, culturing, bringing in the good bacteria that we need, and helping our microbiome rebalance, but also culturing in our minds. Purifying, taking out the things that we don't need from our food, from our lifestyle, even from our minds. And then movement is so important. So I think today one of my new contacts, Zach from the Parkinson's gym, who might have invited some of you, he has actually some online resources for you that I'm going to send out afterwards to help you continue to move. I know a lot of you really enjoy rock steady boxing. You've seen a lot of progress, and I don't want you to go backwards with the progress that you've made. And I love the fact that you're using movement in your life as medicine, as a way to help you thrive with Parkinson's disease. So movement is one of the things I talk about, and how nutrition relates into that to help you stay moving. And we'll talk about some of those things a little bit further on. Then connection with other people is another thing that I talk about. I'm not going to dig in that too much today, except for the fact that even what I'm doing today, trying to help us connect with each other, connecting with other people, is an important part of our health. We are made for community with other people, and actually connection and the feeling of support will help enhance your immune system. So in this time where we're socially distancing ourselves from each other, I'm sure you've heard this so many times, but it's not a time to be isolated from other people. So we may dig into that if we have some time a little bit further about some ways to connect with other people. But that's another part of our health that I do emphasize with my clients. And then creating. So one of the things that I like to talk about is after we've nourished our body and we're rested, we feel like doing something creative. We're able to create as an expression for ourselves, but also to be able to give to other people and to bless other people. I actually have a friend named Bly, who was a friend from college. She's an amazing watercolor artist. She lives on a farm in Ohio with her 6 children. And she's been painting and helping other people learn how to do watercolor paint to send to hospitals and to bless the employees there and the people who are there right now. So that's I love that example of using our creativity to create beauty in the world around us, which is good for our own health, but also encourages and is a benefit to other people. So that's where I'm coming from. That's my stance with nutrition and health. Is it's a whole person. So many times in our society, we just kind of think about our health in what we call silos. So just these individual things, like you have your cardiac doctor and cardiac health, and then you have neurologists, and you have your GI doctor and GI health, and you have endocrinologists if you have blood sugar issues, and everybody doesn't really, no one really talks to each other. So I like the fact that we need to kind of combine all of these approaches and really think about us as a whole person. So another thing that I like to emphasize is when we talk about health, and especially when we think about chronic disease or chronic conditions, keeping in mind that something doesn't just show up in our health overnight. We don't just usually, unless we have an accident, when we talk about chronic conditions, it's not like one day we don't have anything going on and then the next day we wake up with a chronic disease. And one of the quotes that I like to use and reference is by a man named Jeffrey Bland, who is called the father of functional medicine, which is a stream of medicine that I practice in. And he says that the loss of function precedes the onset of disease. Disease does not come as a bump in the night. It comes as a consequence of declining function over time. So many of you may be able to identify with the fact that you didn't just wake up one day with Parkinson's disease. Maybe there were some things that were triggers ahead of time, and maybe some warning signals that you even think, I wish I'd kind of picked up on that ahead of time, or someone finally diagnosed me after years and I had to do my own digging and figure out what was wrong with me. But there's probably some underlying things, and those underlying things is what I'm going to talk about today a little bit more so, and how we still address some of those underlying things that kind of show up with the symptoms that you're experiencing now. So with nutrition therapy, my goal with anyone with a neurological condition, and especially with Parkinson's disease, is to preserve the function of your existing neurons. So kind of halt the downhill slide. Whatever you have, we want to keep it there and keep it healthy, the neurons that are functioning well. But also to stimulate the development of new neurons. And that may be a little bit unfamiliar to some of you, but there is research and data that shows that we can give the body the building blocks that it needs to develop some new neurons. And it's dependent upon a few different factors, but that is possible. And then to enhance the synaptic communication. So from one nerve ending to another, and how they communicate with each other, to enhance that, to give the body the tools and the building blocks and the ingredients it needs to communicate well with each other. I have spoken with some of you at Parkinson's support groups and different meetings that have been locally in my area and in Tennessee in the past few years. And I've done a lot of digging into the research, and it was exciting to me. I like to dig deeply if I can when I have the time, but to see some of the things that were coming out, some of the theories and the thought process behind research in Parkinson's. So we know that there is mounting data over the last 2 decades that really point toward immune and inflammatory alterations as important mediators of the progressive dopaminergic degeneration of Parkinson's disease. But that's a long quote from a scientific journal, but I'm going to just highlight 2 things: immune and inflammatory alterations. Some of the things we're going to talk about through the rest of this webinar today have to do with immune and inflammation. So sometimes, and some of the references that we'll see of Parkinson's disease, and I'm sure that you could probably attest to this one, it's called a brain on fire. Parkinson's is a combination of cellular dysfunction, stress, and inflammation. But the inflammation particularly is what leads to the cellular destruction. I think about inflammation like a fire. So a little bit of fire is good. We need that to be able to cook with, to stay warm and that kind of thing. But fire can get out of control very quickly. And with many, many chronic diseases, inflammation is at the root of that. The brain is and the body is chronically inflamed as a result of some different factors that we'll talk about. And that just feeds inflammation, and the body just feeds chronic conditions. So the choices that we make daily can either feed that fire or fight the fire and delay the destruction of your dopamine producing cells. One of the things that I do with my clients is, I'm going to go ahead and I did not put this on the screen right now, but I have a survey. I'm just going to kind of show you right here. I know you can't read it. A survey that's this long of this many factors here that we use to score our symptoms. So symptoms would be in categories like your energy level, fatigue, insomnia, emotional symptoms like depression and anxiety, irritability, lack of concentration and brain fog, things more in the head and the ear area like migraines and headaches, earaches, infections, ringing in the ears, excessive earwax even. Things in our skin like acne or eczema or psoriasis, hives and itchiness can all be symptoms of inflammation. Things in the sinus cavity like a postnasal drip or chronic sinus congestion, snuffy nose, sneezing, things that are unrelated to a common cold, but things that you have constantly. In the mouth and the throat, like a sore throat or burning in the mouth or tongue, canker sores, constantly clearing your throat. Things in the lungs like wheezing, chest congestion, shortness of breath, and coughing can all be symptoms of inflammation when those go on a long time. Things in with the eye and vision, so sensitivity to light or an aura that you see around objects, itchy eyes and watery eyes or swollenness in the eyes. The urinary tract. So one of the things I do hear a lot with Parkinson's is frequent urination. I can have some different factors, including medications, but we know that inflammation can be one of the causes of frequent urination. Bladder pain, bedwetting. I even see this with little children when I'm working with little ones, or with women even in their young 20s who have had a lot of increased urination, can't understand why, and it ends up being a food or some type of other inflammatory factor that's causing that frequent urination. Things in the musculoskeletal system, so like joint pains, stiff joints, muscle aches, stiff muscles, tics, like an eye that twitches a lot or other type of tics in the body, muscle spasms and cramping can all be related to chronic inflammation. Irregular heartbeat and high blood pressure can be related to inflammation. The digestive tract, a whole long list of things, including gas, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting, painful elimination, and then things with weight management, including swollen ankles and limbs, water retention, which is a sign of water retention, fluctuating weight, food cravings. All the things that I just mentioned can be in some way related to inflammation, and there are more, but I just use one kind of comprehensive sheet to look at with my clients for us to kind of get an inflammation score in the body. This is your own data, and that's what I use when I'm kind of assessing the progress that we're making. But I just wanted to bring those up because a lot of times we don't really think about what does inflammation mean. So those are some of the things that I'm talking about are as an outcropping of inflammation or symptoms, things that show up as kind of warning signals to the body, almost like on the dashboard of your car. I talk about the lights that kind of start dinging, saying, hey, there's something going on underneath the hood, pay attention. So that's what I'm referencing when I'm talking about inflammation. And the choices that we make every day can impact that. So that's one of the things that we'll be discussing a little bit more in depth now and with the other resources that I share with you. But we know that there is not just one solution to any type of chronic underlying disease. There's a lot of things that go into Parkinson's. Inflammation's one, gut health, infections or pathogens in the body, intake, our dietary intake, the nutrients that we eat or the nutrients that we're able to absorb. Sometimes we're not able to even absorb what we do eat. Oxidative stress, which is another word for like rust in the body. I like to compare it to our stress response goes a lot. The more you're stressed, the more symptoms you feel, which I'm sure a lot of you right now may be experiencing some flares in your symptoms. If you feel stressed, if your routine's off of normal, then you're going to be feeling not necessarily that your disease has gotten worse, but the expression of things and how your brain is able to handle the stress affects you, or maybe your tremors or different things like that, symptoms related to Parkinson's. Toxins go into chronic disease and Parkinson's. Environmental toxins like pesticides, but also things that are in our food supply or in our homes, like cleaning supplies. Allergens go into that. Nutrient deficiencies. I'm going to speak a little bit further on nutrients in a little bit. I'm going to touch on a few that are important for us to keep in mind right now. And then physical exercise. So I've already mentioned a little bit of exercise, but I know that's vital for Parkinson's disease. And for many of us, I like to talk about movement. I'm not going to hit on that right now, but even if we can't exercise much, getting up and just moving around or moving our limbs from a chair is going to be so important. So there's someone who wrote a book named Dr. Dale Bredesen, wrote a book on Alzheimer's, so a different neurological condition, but he compared the Alzheimer's solution as like 36 holes in a roof that you're trying to patch up. So many different things that are causing the leaks, and investigating. Not everybody has the same type of contributions to their health underlying causes, but these are some of them that are there that we would need to address and need to kind of check off the list. Is this leading to more and more symptoms for me? So one of the things that we talk about is what do we need to remove to improve our function and to enhance health and healing? What do we need to take out? So those might be things like foods that are causing inflammation in the body, toxins, we already mentioned that, allergens, stress, and infections or pathogens. That can be a lot of times the gut infections that are going on. I do a lot of deep digging. I'll show you a stool test that I use in a little bit. But all these things can lead to inflammation and then an abnormal immune response. What happens is our body's trying to fight these things, and it's stressing the body out versus letting it kind of calm down and step back and take a deep breath and focus on what it needs to be focusing on. And we have to think about, what do we need to put back in? What do we need to replace to improve our body's function and to restore health and healing as much as possible? So those things are like key nutrients. Organisms that are good for our body, beneficial organisms. Another term would be probiotics. Or digestive enzymes. Sometimes people need extra digestive enzymes to help them break down their foods. And then those foods are used to make neurotransmitters, like dopamine. And then intestinal barrier components. What do we need to do to kind of help our body intestinal system to be as strong and healthy as it can be, to fight off infection, to manufacture the good neurotransmitters that we need. And one of the vitamins that I'll mention today is actually part of our intestinal barrier function. So stay tuned for that one. Um, I am a dietitian, but I deal a whole lot with the digestive tract overall, a lot more than just the mouth. So we see the gut as the gateway to the environment. From our mouth to where we eliminate is part of our digestive tract. And really it's our body's first line of defense, and to help us get the nutrients that we need, and to also defend us from outside invaders is what I like to say. The more of a good army that we have in, it can kill out the bad stuff that comes in. Maybe you eat a piece of fruit and it has bacteria. We need to know, does your body have enough of an immune response to kill that off and to protect you? And also, is your body's intestinal system working well enough to digest your food, to help you get the nutrients that you need to keep your body healthy, to make neurotransmitters that you need for good brain function, and then more. I'm not going to dive a whole lot in here, but we know that chronic low-grade inflammation in the gut, so that fire that we mentioned, that kind of, sometimes think about it like a slow simmering fire underneath the surface even. It's believed to trigger things like brain barrier leakage or leaky brain, which if you've heard the term leaky gut, it's a real thing. It's a lot of time, for I think a while, some of the mainstream medical society didn't really believe us from the more functional side of things, but we even have we have a lot more substantial evidence to prove that there is such a thing as leaky gut, leaky brain. When we don't have good barriers in place, we don't have good walls and protection in place, then things can get through where they're not supposed to go. So we know that can trigger immune cell activation. It can things that we take in our digestive tract can actually trigger our immune system to go haywire. It's like going through airport security with weapons on, and then all the alarms go off. And then that's like symptoms in your body where things are just going off and your body says, I'm stressed, something's wrong here. And then just inflammation in our central nervous system to begin with. So one of the ways I kind of see, well, what do I have going on underneath the surface in my body, is to do some more in-depth laboratory testing. I have a lot of tools available that I use with my clients. First of all, we just have to think, even with normal laboratory testing, what is optimal and then what is just okay. So I know a lot of times you may go to the doctor and you get some labs drawn and they'll say, good news, your labs are fine. But maybe they're just barely passing. They're in that quote normal range, but does it mean that it's a grade D or you get a grade A on your labs? So that's one of the first things I look at with my clients is, what about your vitamin D labs? What about your iron labs? What about some of your other nutrient labs, or even your blood sugar labs? Is it just okay? Is it a passing grade, or is it optimal for your health to help you thrive? I do blood tests and blood tests and urine tests and stool tests, all kind of looking at different things in the body, to go really in depth with many different factors to see what's going on underneath the surface there. And then I use that laboratory data to help optimize health and also to prevent development of further disease. But I'm going to dig a tiny bit deeper. This is kind of a confusing diagram. I did not use it, but I'm going to use it. I did not create it, but I'm going to use it today. When we talked about some underlying inflammation, when we eat a food, and I'm not sure, you may not be able to see my cursor here, but when we eat a food, our body can have an immune response that causes inflammation in the body. So it kind of has the end point of causing things like increased gut permeability, leaky gut. It can cause neurological symptoms that we mentioned when I showed you this symptom survey and we went through all the areas in the body. It can cause tissue damage. It can cause smooth muscle contraction. So when I mentioned the bladder, which is in one of our smooth muscles, foods that we eat can trigger that. I've had people who've found certain foods that will cause them to urinate more frequently, which one of my clients, it was potatoes. It can have the effects of like keeping someone up at night, insomnia. I have a client who told me just a few weeks ago, and we worked together for 2 years now, that we've been able to kind of eliminate factors and figure out the fact that black pepper causes her to stay awake at night when she eats any amount of black pepper, even if it's hidden in something like a barbecue sauce. It will cause her to stay awake at night, which is very, very interesting. So we have some new people joining us, so hello. I just like to bring up some of this, the fact that foods can very much contribute to our inflammation. And I use a test to determine which foods are causing the release of what are called mediators of inflammation. Things like cytokines, leukotrienes, histamine, prostaglandins, a lot of long scientific terms that we see in the research studies, even with Parkinson's disease, that cause symptoms. So that's a really complicated screen, but I did want to just go ahead and bring that up, how foods can trigger inflammation in the body. Let's see. Okay. And I was mentioning just a little bit, here's a really fun diagram that I had to sit for a minute and look at. But this is basically showing us that some of these mediators of inflammation that I mentioned can cross the blood-brain barrier right here, and then up at the top, that they can affect our neurons. So it's interesting for me to see some of the things that I see practically are actually studied scientifically in the journals and evidence-based things as well. So I try to boil things down to a very practical level, bite-sized information, and kind of giving you a big overall view right now of thought processes behind things to let you know that this is scientifically based, what I talk about. But then we got to boil it down and say, okay, what do we really do about this? What does it mean for me in my life? So one of the things that I work with clients who work with me individually is a personalized anti-inflammatory diet, which is the most direct route to reduce chronic inflammation. And with that involves a blood test for food and food chemical sensitivities. I test 170 different foods and food chemicals. And we see things like chicken and beef, oregano, cane sugar, honey, broccoli and carrots, and apples and bananas. But we also look at things like naturally occurring food chemicals. Caffeine is one of those, or something called salicylic acid, which is in our aspirin. We look at food dyes and preservatives. And from that, we're able to kind of graph out for us to see what foods are triggering the greatest amount of inflammatory mediator release that can cross that blood-brain barrier. And then we also see what I'm mainly looking for, okay, what are the most immune calming and anti-inflammatory foods for your body? There is so much confusion and so much information out there about what food you should be eating. There's paleo, there's vegan, there's raw vegan, there's keto, there's Whole30 and Mediterranean, and so much that it just makes your head swim. But I will tell you that until we find out exactly what your body needs to calm down, take a deep breath, and feel safe, I never have experienced those same results with just any other kind of random diet. We know that one man's or woman's superfood can be another person's poison. So I've told you a few examples of just kind of some random anecdotal things, but I will say with my own life, I have found that things like olive oil, which is, I mean, there's not probably one diet out there that says you shouldn't have olive oil, but when I use olive oil in my cooking, I have found, based upon my test results and now my practical experience, that I feel really depressed. And so I know that for my body, olive oil is not a superfood. Then I know some people who find that apples, I have one client in particular, apples trigger her migraines. So when people say that an apple a day keeps the doctor away, it wasn't true for her. And apples are one of the things that she has found out from her working with me and working through our program, that doesn't work for her. Or I mentioned the client who had black pepper who kept her up at night and insomnia. We know none of us want to not have a good night's sleep. And there's many, many other examples of things, but I like to get personal with people and to see what is working best for your body, what's going to help your body thrive. And that way we don't have to restrict things that we shouldn't. So I like to help people enjoy a wide variety of wholesome foods, as much abundance as we can. So this is the test, actually, if you want to kind of see a little bit of the graph, what the graphs look like. So we test lots of different things. This is just a snippet of it. But the green foods here are the ones like turkey at the top. Turkey is one of the most calming meats for this person, if indeed they had been eating turkey prior to the test for a few months. Chicken looks like it works. For this person, egg yolks were causing a lot of inflammation. Now, I like to use eggs. Eggs are a great source of protein. For this person, egg whites and egg yolks were not a good fit for them. They were causing problems. Up at the top, I have a little snippet of food chemicals. So these are some of the food chemicals that we test. Here is solanine, which is the second one from the bottom. Solanine is a chemical that's found in a naturally occurring food chemical found in potatoes and tomatoes and nightshade vegetables, such as eggplant and green peppers, those type of things. And for that person, solanine was causing an issue. And I will tell you, a lot of my clients who react to solanine, who have solanine that it's either red or yellow, have a lot of joint pains. A lot of my clients with arthritis have joint pains when they eat some of those nightshade vegetables. So it's good for us to know what can we include and what do we need to stay away from. You'll notice also down at the bottom that this client was highly reactive to strawberries. Now, I love strawberries, and I put strawberries in my smoothie almost every single morning. But for this client, we needed to find some other fruits that worked for her to help her body thrive. So I just wanted to show you a little bit of what I was talking about with that one here. And I'm gonna skip this one for a minute. I told you I do some more in-depth testing of stool testing. So this is something that my clients do at home for us to check. Do we have any bacteria that's growing where it doesn't need to be? It's kind of growing out of bounds. How is the digestive health? Do we have enough pancreatic enzymes coming through to help us digest foods? We look at the body's response to gluten. I look at inflammation in the intestinal tract and the colon particularly. We look at a marker called zonulin, which is a marker of more of leaky gut. And we also look for one of the infections called H. pylori, which can be growing in the stomach, but if it shows up when you have a stool sample, that means you have a good bit of it. And we look at ways to do that, take care of those factors naturally. I use a lot of herbs and then natural healing compounds for my clients to help them, because we know that intestinal immune system impacts your overall immunity and your overall function in the body. So I like to see what's going on there before we do a whole lot of adding things on just because we think we may need to. Excuse me, I'm going to take a drink of water. Okay, so we've done a little bit of big scientific overview. I want to get in a little bit more about some practical steps and what do you need to be doing on a daily basis. So I really look at food as not only medicine, food is community, food is nourishment. But when we talk about a food as medicine approach, this is much different than the approach that I grew up with and even kind of experienced in, even in my training as undergraduate nutrition and dietetics. I still had this mindset that food is something that we needed to be afraid of, that we needed to avoid so that we avoid gaining weight. And I've had a big mindset shift for the past 8 to 10 years now of realizing that food is something that our body needs to nourish us, and everything that we put in our body, everything that we eat or drink needs to be for the purpose of giving our body something that it needs to thrive. So I don't have just one diet that I focus on. I'm not an advocate of keto or paleo or Mediterranean or Whole30 or those types of things. My big picture, my big overall perspective of food is that we want to eat nourishing, whole foods. So as much as we can, eat foods that have minimal preservatives in them. That when we pick up even a box of food off the shelf, and sometimes there are prepackaged foods that work. I don't want it to have what we call a laundry list of ingredients. I don't want to have a lot of things I can't pronounce. I want just basic, simple ingredients. So an example of that may be, my children like to eat the snacks called Lara bars. And Lara bars have 2 ingredients. They have a pretty package on the outside, but they have cashews and they have dates in them. 2 things, that's all. I can pronounce those. I know what they are. That's an example of a whole food. But also, just lots of fruits and vegetables. And as we talk about the second point of eating the rainbow, um, I have a handout that I'll send along to you. Some of you have received this in the past, but 1 to 2 servings of every color every day is a really good goal. And we can get those in some different ways and different strategies to do that. It might be putting it in your smoothie. It may be incorporating a little bit extra spice if you're cooking, or even if you have something that's pre-prepared. Maybe you haven't been able to cook that day and you picked up a can of soup. Maybe you picked up a can of tomato soup. Know that you can add some dried basil in there and some onion powder to kind of amp the color up and the power, the food power even more. This can be simple steps that you can do to increase the color that you get every single day. Some of the next terms I mentioned are protein power, filling fiber, sustaining carbohydrates, nourishing fats, and then spicing it up. So this is what I focus on with my clients to talk and help them use food as medicine for their body. I'm gonna dive into 1 or 2 of those, particularly the protein in just a second. As we talk about nutrition is for our life. It helps you to build or maintain your muscle mass. And so those of you who are doing boxing know that you've got to have good muscle mass. If you just for daily living, getting up and moving around, you want to preserve that muscle mass. So having enough calories in and enough protein to help, enough calories to help spare your protein out so your body doesn't burn up protein for energy. Helps maintain your muscle mass, which means that you're more independent. It also means that you are more resistant to infection when your body is well nourished. So now with all this scare that's going on, more than ever, we need to make sure that we are paying attention to nourishing our bodies to resist infection. Regardless if we come up with a vaccine for this virus, it's never a guarantee. So our job is to strengthen and fortify our body to resist infection. It helps us maintain energy levels. So when we're well nourished, we have enough energy to do the things that we love to do. Enough energy to pursue hobbies that you love, interact with children and grandchildren, and maybe outside tasks that you enjoy, gardening, or hopefully one day we'll get a little bit more, being able to go out and do more activities. Also, it helps promote new neuron growth and then aid with your existing nerve function. A lot of the nutrients that are in our food and B vitamins, things like that, are involved with our nerve function. And I went back 1 slide for just a minute, if you don't mind. I'm gonna go back here. So our goal is aiming for 4 to 6 small meals a day. If you feel like you can't eat a lot at one time, spreading out your intake throughout the day. And I know particularly if you're having to manage protein intake with your medications, aiming for 4 to 6 small meals a day helps your body. 1, your digestive system isn't taxed because you're trying to get everything in 1 or 2 meals. And then 2, it just helps you to make sure that you are getting in enough nutrients. One of the things I work with my clients is not skipping meals. Now, I know there's some different thoughts about intermittent fasting, things like that. We can go into that at a later time if you'd like. But for the most part, not skipping meals is going to be a good way for you to make sure that you are nourishing your body well. We can't wait until the end of the day and then eat everything that we need. I was talking to a client just earlier this week who lives alone. She's had a lot of challenges with stability. She's had a lot of falls, things like that. Still is very independent and drives, but she said, Bethany, I just don't feel like I needed much food. And I was just eating twice a day. And sometimes it was a bowl of cereal, then maybe a little bit of something else. And one of the things that we were working on is getting her at least getting 3 meals in a day. And for her, 2 of those meals were a nourishing smoothie. So we put even some vegetables in that smoothie for her, things that helped. She didn't have to cook. She could just run a blender and still get maybe 3 or 4 colors in that smoothie, and some good protein and some nourishing fats and fiber to help her. So aiming for 4 to 6 small meals a day is a good idea. That way you can spread out your protein intake as well. And just not skipping meals, which we've already talked about. And then protein particularly, I'm going to go ahead and just bring that one up. I know that that's one I get a lot of questions about with Parkinson's disease, because many of you are having to manage protein intake with your medication, and it's hard to kind of figure some of that one out. But protein itself helps us with immune function. It helps to manufacture those blood cells that our body needs to fight infection. Protein is important for your muscle mass. We've already talked about that. It's also important for helping to stabilize our blood sugar. So I know we're talking about Parkinson's disease, but I'm curious if any of you have diabetes or pre-diabetes, already diagnosed. I'm not going to even go to the function of the screen right now where we raise hands, because I'm not sure if I want to mess something up. But one of the first things I do when someone comes in and sits down across the table from me in my office area, which is the dining room of my farmhouse, is we talk about blood sugar regulation. Regardless if you've been diagnosed with diabetes or not, helping make sure that your body has a stable amount of blood sugar so that your blood sugar ends up being a nice steady rise and fall instead of putting you on a roller coaster like this. It's going to help calm down anxiety too. I'm not sure how many of you have that feeling of getting hangry, which is a new term that we've heard a lot more recently, or angry before you, when you haven't eaten enough, or you feel weak and shaky and jittery, and then you realize, oh, maybe I need to eat something. When our body's blood sugar drops as a result of going too high sometimes, it can leave us feeling very anxious, and our mental function is not very clear. So protein is one of those nutrients. It's so important to help your blood sugar be stable. And we also know that when your blood sugar is too high, it's spiking too high up, it will cause release of the hormone insulin, which is like the key that unlocks the door of your cells to help get that sugar or carbohydrate in so that your body can burn that up for energy. And so insulin's a good thing. We need it around. But when we have too much of it, it can also lead to that chronic inflammation in the body. It can feed that fire. So that's another thing that we have to keep in mind, is protein is going to help us stabilize that. When we just have something, just a carbohydrate, so I'm going to use the example of just an apple or banana. And if your body doesn't regulate your blood sugar very well, or if you have just a candy bar, your blood sugar can go way high. And then sometimes, if you don't have the right nutrients and your body's not managing carbohydrates very well, after a while, it's just going to drop way down really fast. But when we have protein in there, even when you have protein with a snack, so for instance, you have maybe a hard-boiled egg plus an apple, and I give that as an example, that's going to help your blood sugar not go up quite so fast and drop down. It's going to help be more of a steady rise and fall. So one of the terms I like to use is no naked carbohydrates. So that means not having carbohydrates, sugary foods, or even starchy foods without either a protein power or a nourishing fat. So that's one of the things that I dive into more with my clients and in my classes, is about helping us put things together that are going to be good nourishing snacks and nourishing meals. This is a little bit on your daily nourishment if you're wanting to calculate. I'm not going to go into it right now because we're getting a little bit later on, and I want to keep this in an hour. But I know that some of you do have to manage your protein, so if we need to talk about that individually, we can, and how to meet those goals. Staying hydrated is another thing that helps prevent your body from being stressed. It helps you with digestive function. It helps you eliminate the foods that you don't need, get rid of that waste product. It helps you with energy. So a lot of times people who come to me and they're just chronically drained of energy, one of the first things that we start with is getting enough fluid, good, clear, purified water, some herbal teas that don't have caffeine in them, maybe waters that have a little bit of fruit juice in there, or like slices of orange or lemon to help make it taste better if you don't want to just drink water. And I have an electrolyte drink recipe that I will share with you, especially important for you if you're doing a lot of exercise or you're doing outside work. Now that it's getting to be prettier weather, you may be outside a little bit more. Drinking a homemade electrolyte drink versus Gatorade can help you stay very hydrated, which is so important. And again, it aids with that. If some of you are dealing with constipation, that's the first line, is to make sure you have enough fluids in, sipping that throughout the day. It's going to be a good line. So I usually divide our body weight in half to determine how many fluid ounces of water we need. So a woman who is 150 pounds, dividing that in half, that's going to be 75 fluid ounces of water a day. That would be a goal. If you don't already drink that, probably don't want to start drinking that amount today. It needs to be something that you steadily work up to. You might be calling me back and saying, Bethany, I spent the whole day in the bathroom. So just take it slow and some slow incremental goals to reach your fluid goal. But that can be something that's just a very basic thing that you can do to help improve your health. The other thing when we're talking about immunity and sickness right now is fluid helps to thin out those mucus secretions, helps our body clear out even the things that come in through our nose and throat. And very important during illness, times of illness. So you want to keep that electrolyte recipe that I send to you on hand. If you do get sick, it's going to be important for you to have that here. Yes, so I had a question from Robert. Gatorade does have a lot of sugar. The other thing that Gatorade has, some of those have a lot of food dyes that can be a problem, and artificial flavors and colorings that a lot of people can find that those are inflammatory for their body. So one of the things I like to use is just straight coconut water, if you like that, or you can add a splash of coconut water to your water that you drink. Coconut water has a lot of natural electrolytes. It's clear, has a little bit of a sweet taste. Some people like it, some people don't, in terms of just the flavor by itself. But I have a recipe that uses coconut water along with some other fruit juices and water to help make it more of a homemade electrolyte drink. So that's something that you could drink every day if you wanted to, just because I know it's easier for you to become dehydrated. Let's see. Okay. I'm not going to be able to get to all of this because I think I talked a lot and I didn't realize I had so much to say. But that's one of the things we're going to dig into, and something else that I'm talking to you about that I'll bring up. I want to bring up the one key nutrient that I mentioned today is vitamin D. So this is one that it's well researched for neurological function, especially Parkinson's disease. It's one of the top ones that I look at with clients who have Parkinson's disease. This is also important for immune function and respiratory health. And it's also important for blood sugar regulation. It's important for mood. It's important for maintaining that barrier in your gut to help prevent that leaky gut. It helps maintain these like really tight junctions in your intestine. So vitamin D is a lot more than just a vitamin. It acts as a hormone in our body, good for bone health too. It's one that tends to be overlooked. We've just come through a whole winter where we did have a nicer weather than we had been having, but still we're having a lot of, we've come through a whole winter where we've been depleted, haven't been able to absorb our vitamin D at our latitude. So some people may be joining me from Florida, but otherwise we've been in the Tennessee area, and anything above Birmingham, Alabama, or not getting the sun's rays in the wintertime. So I'm going to send you some information in a follow-up email about a blood test that you can do at home. It's a finger prick test that you can do to measure your levels of vitamin D. And that's something, if you have not had your vitamin D levels measured in the past 2 to 3 months and you don't know exactly what your numbers are, then you can check that at home. You can show that to your doctor, or in the course that I'm going to be bringing up in a few minutes, or in a session with me, we can address that. But optimizing your vitamin D levels is one of the most important things that you can do to help prevent immunity and to impact Parkinson's disease. I want to make sure that your levels are between 40 and 80. Usually that's my goal with people. And along with our vitamin D, when I have a client who has low vitamin D levels, I don't give just this huge amount for a long amount of time. There's studies that have shown that you do a lot better with a small amount of vitamin D over a long amount of time. And then along with that, there's some nutrients that go with it, like vitamin K2 and magnesium. So, and magnesium is another important one with Parkinson's disease that we're not going to delve into today, but those kind of need to partner together. So I will tell you that I have an online dispensary that I will send a link to for you that has nutrients that I've talked about today and nutrients that are important with Parkinson's disease. And you can go online and order those if you don't have them. I'm going to show you the vitamin D I use at home. Comes in a dropper form. It has a good form of vitamin D along with the vitamin K2 in there. And I do one little drop out of here is 1,000 international units of vitamin D. So depending upon what your body needs, you can dose that accordingly. And that's online, available through my online ordering platform if you need a source for the vitamin D. Easy to put on a spoon, to drop on your food if you're going to eat it, or just to put it directly in your mouth. So I like using a liquid form of that one. I'm not going to get into magnesium right now. I think I have to say that for another day. But in terms of nutrients in general, I'd rather maintain just a good baseline of nutrient supplementation. And that includes a multivitamin daily with active forms of vitamins. So I'm just going to tell you, the one I use is called Twice Daily Multi by a company called Designs for Health. They're a family-owned company, very intentional about making sure there's no contaminants in it. It's third-party tested. All the nutrients in their active forms. Zinc is another nutrient that's important for immune function. There's 15 milligrams of a very good form of zinc in here that it's well absorbed by the body. And so that's another one I like to pull in just as kind of cover our bases. If you're not doing a multivitamin already, that's going to be in the Parkinson's category on my online site as well. And I'll show you a picture of this one so you can even see it. I'll send a picture to you. So I know that we are wrapping up here, and there's just kind of overview. There's not just one solution to what's going on with your neurological health. There are a lot of factors that go into that one. And so I do help people dig into that individually, but I also am launching, because of popular demand, a Nutrition for Parkinson's Disease online class. So this is going to be a 6-week online class that begins on the 13th of April. And I would love to have you join us. I gave you a lot of information today, but what we're going to be doing is breaking down nutrition into bite-sized pieces. And we'll have class 3 times a week. If you can't join us at the appointed time, then I will have a recording that I'll send out to you. But Mondays, we're going to be in the classroom. I'll be doing some more teaching about specific topics that we lay out related to nutrition and wholesome lifestyle. On Wednesdays, we're going to be in the kitchen. So I'm going to be doing some cooking demos straight from my kitchen to show you how I make things. And you will receive the recipes that go with that. And you'll have a mini cookbook that you will make up for you that you'll receive. So maybe 2 to 3 recipes per cooking demo. We'll kind of have to see which ones we use. But I want you to feel empowered to make wholesome foods at home with very basic, simple ingredients. So this is not going to be anything stressful, anything really gourmet. It'll be tasty and nourishing, and something that you can make with very simple, basic ingredients. I know we're dealing with some grocery store issues right now for you. So I even have substitutions that you can swap out. If it doesn't work to make what I show you, you can put this extra ingredient in, or that kind of thing. And then on Fridays, we're going to do what I've already talked about in terms of community. This is going to be table time. We're going to come together, and that's going to be the time where you can ask me questions. We'll turn on the live video, and you can speak to me and speak to each other. So a time for us to discuss things about health and nutrition. If you have questions about either the cooking demonstration or what I've talked about on Monday, you'll have a chance to process those and then come back and talk about those kind of things. So if you have your chat function up, if anyone you think if you're interested in that, if you could just put a thumbs up or say me, if that's something that you think would be helpful for you, I'd love to hear back from you to say, yeah, I think I'm interested in more of that. I'm going to give you some more of those details here. I should have made this disclaimer at the very beginning, but I'm a nutrition expert, but you are the expert in your body. And I want you to know that I'm learning a lot about Parkinson's disease, but I need to learn from you. I want to hear what works for you and what questions you have, what things I can do to help you. And that's what's going to make this class helpful, is your feedback. I have done a lot of research on Parkinson's, but just because you do research doesn't necessarily mean you know what it's like on an everyday basis. So I want this to be something that we make together and that helps you thrive. And I'm very passionate about that. So I can help put the science into practical action when we have you and we help each other. So that community aspect is going to be so important to have that support. So the details for that class is I'm going to keep it small. I'm going to cap it at 30 people right now. This is the first time that I've run an online group course, so it will be a little bit new for all of us, but it'll be kind of in this platform here. This is Zoom meeting. I'll turn on video. Our registration fee is $2.99 for that class. So I've kept the registration fee low. Honestly, when I run it again, it will not be that low, but I want you to go ahead and give you an opportunity to be on that like beta testing ground of things. And then also, if you decide that you're interested and you sign up today, then I'm going to go ahead and give you a complimentary mini session with me. So that's a phone call or a video chat with me for 30 minutes to talk one-on-one, and you can involve your caregiver or spouse with that as well. And we can use that time to talk about specific vitamin supplementation. If you have vitamin D levels back, or you want to discuss those, we can. We can talk about your challenges or kind of troubleshoot some things. But then you'll also have access to me in the question and answer session as well. But that's a bonus if you sign up today. I want to go ahead and give that to you. That'll be a lot of time if all 30 of you sign up. But I want to give that because I think that would be helpful for you. And I love to be able to talk to you individually. And I know that Zach has some rock steady boxing going on, and I don't want to interfere with that class time. So I'm thinking a morning class time, either 10 or 11 Eastern time. So I'm going to poll you and see when the best time would be to start that one, because I want you to be able to get moving. So I want as many of you to join. And again, if it's a time that you can't join us, I will have a replay that you can send in your questions ahead of time. And then you can also watch the video again. So that way you can take time to process it and stop it if you need to and go back and learn. I want this to be something that's helpful for you. So next step to take, if you're interested in signing up for that, the link is on the screen at my website, ingrainedliving.com/Parkinson's. But I'll also send a link out after this webinar is finished, and we're wrapping up in just a second, for you to join there through that link also. If you have any trouble registering, you can contact me. My email is bethany@ingrainedliving.com. You can reply to any of the emails that I've already sent to you and just say, Bethany, I need help registering. We can talk over the phone. If I need to help you enter your credit card information over the phone, that is fine. I accept credit cards and debit cards for registration. Next steps, if you're interested in working with me individually, I will say that this class is going to take the place of, if you decide you want to work with me individually, I do schedule a 90-minute initial appointment with you to really look at your health, talk about some details of things, and make a plan for further steps. So I will waive that 90-minute fee if you decide you want to work with me and you've already enrolled in this class. Then I will waive your 90-minute initial appointment fee. So that's another bonus. If you decide after the class, hey, I'm ready to take a deeper dive, I'm ready to do some of that in-depth lab testing that you mentioned, that kind of thing, then you'll already kind of have that 90-minute fee taken care of. Or if you want to just have a quick mini session with me, you're not sure if you can do the class, but you have got some burning questions right now, we can schedule you for a 30-minute initial, just 30-minute appointment for you. So I'm here as a resource for you. My phone number is on the screen. If it's easier for you to call me instead of typing, I understand that, and we can talk on the phone. But some of the other things in the slideshow, I guess, the last things is I have created a private Facebook group where we can talk about nutrition, wholesome living for Parkinson's disease. I just created it last night, and I'll send out a link for you in the follow-up email that I send for you to join, friends to join. This is where I can still share some fun things, maybe do some Facebook Lives, hear your questions about nutrition, and still help you out even if you aren't able to join the class. But the class will be a very good structured way for us to work through some basics of nutrition for Parkinson's and wholesome living and support each other in that learning process. So Thank you so much for coming today. I'm so glad to see lots of names, people I've met before, new faces. I can't really see your face, new names. And if you have any questions about anything that I mentioned today, you can email me back or you can contact me through the other methods that I mentioned. But I'm here for you as a resource. I'm learning with you. And I'm so, so excited about using food as medicine to help you thrive with Parkinson's disease. So I hope you have a bright, sunshiny afternoon. And here's to wholesome. Okay, we'll see you later.